Assalamu alaikum, inshallah you're well guys. So today I'm going to speak about the interview question, tell me about yourself. Now this is a very common question. I'd say that even if it isn't in the list of questions that your interviewer is going to ask you, it will definitely come up because it's a great way to break the ice with a candidate. Now although it's a common question, it can be quite difficult to answer because it's a very broad question. I remember that when I was going for an interview for apprenticeships, when I was asked this question at the beginning, I'd be thinking in my head, can you be a bit more specific? What do you want to know? By the way guys, I was thinking that in my head. I would never reply back with, what do you want to know? And that's not something I'd recommend you do either, because it's not a great sign if you need guidance and help from the interviewer early on. So how do you go about structuring your answer? Now I'd recommend you think about past, present and future. So you could start off by talking about where you come from, which is absolutely fine for apprentices and graduates, because as an interviewer, I'm not expecting you to have this amazing career. Then I'd talk about what you're currently doing and what you want to do in the future. Stick to the short to medium term, talk about the next 2-3 years, what you want to gain, the role, the skills, the experience that you want to develop, and what you've already learned to date as well. And if you follow this structure, it will lead you on nicely to the next interview question, which is likely to be, why do you want this role? Or why do you want to work for the company? Now at this stage, I think there is a mistake you should avoid. Now not every interviewer will agree with me, but in my eyes this is a mistake, and this is where candidates often talk about their grades. So if you're an apprentice and you're looking for your first role in finance, you may start off by talking about how you're in year 13, you're looking for an entry-level role to develop your skills, your experience after you got 10 A-star grades in your GCSEs. I'm not a fan of that approach because dropping your grades isn't really relevant at the interview stage, because you've already proven that you meet the minimum entry requirements. It may be viewed as a sign of arrogance as well, but more importantly, you're speaking to someone for the first time. You're trying to build a relationship, and the first thing you're going to talk about is your grades. Come on guys, you can do better. Next tip is be positive. Talk about your successes, your varied experiences. Don't focus on the negatives in your life. We all have problems in our lives. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. Don't try to tell an interviewer that you should hire me because of my difficult background, my upbringing, or because I meet some diversity targets. Having said that, it's absolutely fine to mention things in passing. Say you're a young carer. I'd probably bring that up because that will explain to an interviewer why you may not have as much experience as the next candidate. Also, make sure you're passionate. You're not talking about audit here, you're talking about yourself. So remember to smile, be positive, nice, open, welcoming body language, and definitely look at the interviewer in the eye. There's certain terms you can use as well. So as an example, you could say, I had a great opportunity, or I'm really interested, and put emphasis on those key words. So instead of saying, I had a great opportunity, say, I had a great opportunity. By elongating on that key word in a slightly different tone, you're drawing the interviewer into your response. They're going to be paying attention. One trap I want you to avoid is make sure you don't get too personal. Always keep your answer professional. When you're talking about yourself, it's very easy to feel pressure that you have to give an answer which impresses the interviewer, that they've never heard about before. And that may cause you to cross the boundary from being professional into being too personal. To avoid this from happening, I always recommend to candidates that you think about 2 interesting facts about yourself that you can bring up in advance of the interview. So as an example, you could talk about languages. You could open up with the answer that I'm originally from Manchester, but I moved to London in 2018. And an interesting fact about me is that I speak 3 different languages thanks to my parents, because my mum's from China and my dad's from Germany. For me, that's a good opener because you spoke a bit about the past, you spoke about where you're from, you told me a bit about your parents, and you mentioned an interesting fact. So you're well set to move on to the present stage of your answer. On a side note guys, language skills are highly desirable. So if you speak another business or a European language, definitely drop it. I remember when I was at BDO, we had a member of the team, she was a graduate, I think she was in her 1st or 2nd year. She got the opportunity to travel to China because she was either one of 2 people or maybe the only person in a team of 50 who spoke Chinese. Now I've already answered the question, tell me about yourself, in my previous video called Partner Interview Part 3. You should have already watched this before coming to this video, but if you haven't, I've left a link to that video in the description below. So let's check out my answer because I'm going to critique myself. So John, I'm originally from Birmingham. I moved down to London to study history at Queen Mary's University. And I chose history because I wasn't really sure of what career path I wanted to follow when I was doing my A-levels. So I thought, you know what?
I'll study something that I enjoy. And whilst I was studying history in my first year, I also took on a part-time job. I'm at local Tesco's working on the weekends, and I joined there as a customer assistant. And just about 6 months ago, I recently got promoted to team leader. And to be honest with you, John, I really enjoy that role. It's great because it gives me an opportunity to lead and manage others. And it's also helped me develop my communication skills as well, because I work with a very diverse team who come from a wide range of backgrounds.
Let's pause that right there. So you can see that I spoke a bit about the past. It was quite brief before I moved on to the present, which is absolutely fine to do. But one of the things which stood out to me straight away was I used too many connecting words. I used the word "and" too many times. I definitely could have been better prepared for that answer, but one thing I did quite well was that I started alluding to skills which were relevant to the employer. For example, I spoke about leadership skills. Now let's watch the rest of the answer.
And outside of work in uni, I really love playing sports. So I really enjoy playing football and cricket. So the lockdown and the pandemic has been really tough for me because I've gone from being a person who's constantly interchanging between activities, never sitting, in the same place for a long period of time, to now being confined at home. So the pandemic has been quite tough, I'd say, but it's also given me an opportunity to volunteer with a local charity. And that's something I've really enjoyed doing. It's really drove home the importance of making a positive impact in your local community. And it's something I'd definitely like to continue once the lockdown is over.
So watching the rest of that answer, you can see I then went on to talking about my personal lifestyle. I started talking about sports, in particular team sports, which should lead an interviewer to think that this person is able to work as part of a team. I think the point about COVID was quite good as well, because I took the interviewer on a journey. I was telling them a story. Because of COVID, I had the opportunity to volunteer and benefit my local community. So the interviewer should be thinking this person spoke about uni, work, sports, volunteering. They're quite a diverse person. They've spoke about a range of experiences. The key skills I brought to life in my answer were leadership, teamwork, humility, organization, because you've got to be organized to manage all of those activities at the same time. Now, the only thing I didn't do was I didn't speak about the future in much detail. I didn't speak about the role, the skills, the experience I want to develop, where I want to be in 2 to 3 years, which I think in this instance is absolutely fine. Because if you look at my answer, it was 1.5 minutes, which is a long time. Now, if I had spoken about the future, my answer would have been longer, maybe 2 minutes, maybe even more, which isn't a great idea. I'd say it should be very rare for your answer to be around 2 minutes. It shouldn't be common because you don't want your interviewer to lose interest partway through your answer. Another piece of advice I give to candidates is make sure that you start and end your answer strongly, because that's when the interviewer is most engaged. It's even more important you do that at the beginning of your answer, because if you lose the interviewer's interest, it's very difficult to recover from that position. So I admit that my answer may have seemed a bit long to some people. Even I thought it was a bit long, but because I was speaking about different skills and experiences, I think an interviewer would have remained engaged and interested throughout. What do you guys think? Would you have passed my response to that question? Let me know. Inshallah, I'm going to leave it there, guys. As always, any questions or queries, please feel free to comment below or message me on Instagram.